Okay, everybody, we're going to go ahead and get started. We're going to talk about post-production care of tropical fruit trees, what I call aftercare. I'm Jeff Wasielewski. I'm the Commercial Tropical Fruit Extension Agent for IFAS in Miami-Dade County. And before we get started, we're going to introduce a brand new extension agent from Palm Beach County, Mészáros. I got that probably close to being right. Turn it over to her.
Thank you, Jeff. You did it almost right. So my name is Mészáros. I'm the new county agent here in Palm Beach County, and I was hired about 2 weeks ago. So I would like to quickly introduce myself. I'm originally from Hungary, where I received my master's degree in horticultural engineering. And I also studied crop and environmental protection in France. And I moved to the US in 2006, lived in Louisiana for 10 years. I worked at the Department of Entomology with Louisiana State University, working on all different insects and their management. And I also had a chance to work with private ag research and consulting companies in Louisiana and here in Florida too, evaluating pesticide efficacy for different crops. That means that I have a general knowledge about row and vegetable crops and their management too. So I know a little bit about everything from sugarcane, rice, corn, lettuce, pepper, tomato, even strawberries. But as the new county agent here in Palm Beach County, my main responsibilities is commercial vegetable production, but I will help out with tropical fruit related questions too. So if I don't know something, I don't know the answer, I will try to figure it out for you and help with that. So I'm still learning, like I said, about tropical fruits. That's why I contacted Jeff. And I saw his Tropical Tuesday seminars. He's providing very useful information to everybody on this subject. But Jeff is located in Miami-Dade County. My office is in West Palm Beach, actually inside the Mount Botanical Garden, which is a beautiful garden. So if you have a chance to come and visit, please do so. We have our master gardener groups here too. They are very, very helpful. And maybe you know about the Rare Fruit Council's fruit tree and plant sale is coming up in October 16. That's always a good opportunity to learn, to network, but mainly buy tropical plants. So my contact information is on the slide. Feel free to stop by anytime. And now just let's see what we can learn today about tropical fruit and aftercare. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. So we just have 5 more extension agents we're going to introduce. I'm kidding. We're going to get started.
No.
So post-production care of tropical fruit trees. I'm Jeff Wasielewski. Let's get going. We both work for IFAS Extension. IFAS Extension has a office in every single county. So I'm way down here in Homestead. She's right up here in West Palm. And we also have research and education centers. I have Tropical Research Education Center that I work with. So I have a tropical fruit specialist, I have a tropical fruit entomologist, I have a tropical fruit plant breeder, I have a pathologist. So that's where I get a lot of my good information from working with them. And we do workshops together as well. We're going to have one coming up on lime rootstocks. You guys know about Tropical Fruit Tuesdays because you're here. The next one will be in September. I think it will be September 14th, but it depends on another workshop. And it's going to be on cuttings. And then October 19th, we're going to do the lychee. The lychee has been very popular on YouTube, more than I thought it would be. So speaking of YouTube, where's a good place to get information? I mentioned in the chat to one of the growers that was wondering what to fertilize, when to fertilize and what to fertilize. I said he could check out Ask IFAS. Ask IFAS is a database. And if you put, he was asking about longans, if you put Ask IFAS and search that, you'll find this database on the screen. And it says, what can we help you with? If you type in longan, you'll get a nice publication, a peer-reviewed publication on longans that will have a chart of when to do what. And it also has tons of information on pests, how to plant, how to prune, all those things. So that's a great place to get information. That's University of Florida, and that is all peer-reviewed. So you can't get it in there unless a lot of people look at it and approve it. Another place, if you can't get it from University of Florida, you can search your topic and then edu, and you'll find other universities. YouTube, all the Tropical Fruit Tuesdays are on YouTube. There is good information there. Of course, there's bad information, but I recently was trying to find out how to hand pollinate guanabana, soursop. So I watched about 6 different videos, and each one was a little different, but I think by watching all 6, I kind of have the idea of it now. So that's always a good thing to do, is to watch multiple videos. And you can find the Tropical Fruit Tuesdays just by searching Tropical Fruit Tuesday in the YouTube search bar. Anna mentioned master gardeners. We do have a lot of master gardeners I know that are listening today. I love master gardeners. I was a master gardener. So that's a great place to get information. Probably the best place to get information is your own garden or your own grove. Anna, they're asking for your contact info again. Can you put that into the chat? And if you see it with your own eyes in your own garden or your own grove, you know it's true. So that's better than anything you can read. And beware the source of your information. Easy to get bad information these days, easier than ever. Okay, so what to do after you pick your fruit. The biggest thing that you want to do, that we're going to spend the most time on, is pruning. You want to prune right after you pick, because that will take out the factor of you interrupting the blooming cycle. Mangoes are just finishing up now. So if you prune now, you're in good shape. If you prune in December, you're going to disrupt the blooming cycle. So that's why you prune after you pick your fruit. What we're looking at here is a grove. And on the right, here's some kit mango trees that were not pruned. So during the blooming season, they all bloomed. Inside the grove, we have some raposas that were pruned, but they were pruned too late. So you see very little flowering there. So that's why you want to do it, no matter what your crop, you want to do it right after you pick the fruit. Okay. So I have a quick question that's not really related, but it says we planted lychee and lost all the leaves in 2 months. Is it possibly dead? I would scrape the trunk a little bit with a knife and see if it's brown underneath. If it is, it's dead. It probably died from not getting enough water. So why do we prune? Size control. We want to control the size. That way it's easier to pick. It's easier to spray pesticides or fertilizer. It's easier to do just about everything with your trees. It also helps with disease control. You get more airflow. So that's one reason that we prune, or 3 reasons. More reasons, it reduces the amount of chemicals you need to spray. If you have a 50-foot tree, that's a lot of chemicals. If you have a 15-foot by 15-foot tree, it's a lot less. You're going to get higher quality fruit because you're going to get sunlight on the entire tree, and you're going to get a good airflow. So less disease, better sugar production, higher quality fruit. It also resets the tree for the next year. So you're pruning the tree, you're getting the tree pruned right after you fruit. So that puts all of the kind of branches on the same schedule. So they are going to get cut, and then they're going to come out with new leaves all on the same schedule. And then you see that a lot with lychees and longans, where when you pick, you're basically pruning the whole tree, and that helps to get everything on the same schedule. Overall health of the tree is helped by pruning if you're taking out dead wood or cross branches. Your fruit yield is going to be higher, and I'll show you some pictures of why that is. And of course, a nicely pruned tree is a pretty tree. So after you pick, you're going to go through your grove or your home, whatever you have, and you're going to look for cross branches like these that are rubbing together. You're going to take out the smallest of those branches. That's to help the health of the tree. Oh, and then Dr. Green is helping to answer questions in the chat. Thank you, Dr. Stephen Green. Then also I want to thank Jorge Zaldivar, who also helps out a lot in the chat. So thank you both. Another thing you're looking for is dead wood. You want to take that out. Here's a big piece of dead wood that we want to remove. And then you're looking for broken branches. When you were picking the fruit, you may have broken some branches. So you want to cut those out. So in a grove, you saw that grove that I showed you earlier. What you do to prune, it's pretty simple. You do topping and hedging. So you cut the top with a big machine that I'm going to show you in a second. And then you cut the sides with a hedger. So on the left, we see a tree that's been pruned. On the right, we see trees that are in a good shape, but are going to get pruned. So if you look at it, this tree on the right sort of has an angle from the top to the bottom where the bottom flares out a little bit. And you sort of see that on the smaller tree as well. You definitely see it on the left here, and you see it on the picture on the right. So you want to flare, you want to angle that pruning cut a little bit so the bottom can get sunlight and so can the top. And you don't want to take more than 35%, 33%, 30% of the leaves. This one looks like it took maybe a little more, but they were probably really concerned about height control. So that's topping and hedging. Here's a machine that you're going to use, these big, huge machines with these big arms. They have blades on these arms, and you want to make sure the blades are very sharp. Otherwise, you're going to be ripping instead of cutting. And I have a video here of one of the machines in action. This is in, I believe it was a lychee grove. Well, I never realized how shaky I had the camera there, so sorry about that, but you get the gist of what they're doing. And then they also will do that on the top. So that squares everything off. And what you're doing is you're opening everything up to sunlight. You're controlling the height, and sunlight equals energy for the trees, which equals the power to have flowers and fruit. So very important that you keep up with your pruning. Here's a grove that's very young, and you see everything is spaced well. So as long as these trees are pruned as they get older, they're not going to shade each other out. So you want proper spacing. This spacing is a little bigger than you probably need, but here's 3 young mangoes. This is at my grove at work. And here they are as they're older. You see plenty of space, see some fruit on the trees. There's the tree in the back. That's a cogsalt, this is a Fairchild, and this is a CAC. So here they are side by side. You can see they've done well. Now, the Fairchild takes very little pruning. The CAC is a very vigorous grower, so it takes a lot of pruning. And then this is a cogsol. It takes less even than the Fairchild because it just grows bushier. Okay, so here's the grove I told you about when it comes to pruning and spacing and light. Same grove, it's a lychee grove. And on the left, you see the interior of the grove. Everything is growing together. There's no light. You see all the shade. This is a great park, but this is not a good place to pick your fruit. You see there's a little fruit up at the top. You can see a little bit at top right and top left, a little bit, but it's all up high. Then you have to the right, you have the same grove, but there just happens to be more space because of the road. So you see all that fruit on the side, and also there's some up on the top. So that light that you're getting on the tree is allowing it to flower and fruit. So very important that when you do your pruning, you're after the production, you take that into account. You're taking into account next year. So you want to control the height, and you want to give the tree light and plenty of air. So you want the tree open. These are trees that are a little big, so they're having to pick the trees with picking poles. So larger trees, we saw how we deal with larger trees in commercial setting. I've been to some groves though where the trees are just out of control, where even the hedge or topper is not going to do the job. So you're going to have to come in there with chainsaws. And if you don't want to take everything down at once, you maybe take down one row next year, or take out every other row, control the height, and then do that every other row the next year, so you still get some production. For the rest of you, larger trees like this, I don't know if you really want to prune them for height control, because you would need a certified arborist for that. You might want to just let them be big trees. There are some techniques you can do. This is not one I recommend. These are lychees that were pruned, very large trees, probably 45 by 60 feet, each one of them. And they were pruned like this because they had the lychee Aranos mite, and this is the protocol for that. But this is not the type of pruning that you should do. You can get pretty aggressive with some of these fruit trees, but remember, if you do, you're going to lose 2 years, 3 years of production, because that tree is going to spend all its time putting back its leaves. When you do these big cuts like this, you're going to have massive regrowth. Here's the Royal Poinciana that was cut. They didn't do a great job because they ripped it as they cut it. But you see all the regrowth all over the place. So if this were my fruit tree, what I would do is thin out this regrowth so you have about 5 branches on each trunk, rather than what we have here, which is about 20. So here's a big cut on the left, which is a more aggressive cut to bring a tree down in size. And you see it's been thinned out to 1, 2, about 3, 4 branches. And then those branches were cut again to control the height. So this is something very aggressive if you have a very big tree. Again, I don't really recommend it. It doesn't work that well. It happened to work really well, excuse me, on this avocado, because it came back, it looks super nice, and it's fruiting. Usually it doesn't fruit in 2 to 3 years, but this one fruited pretty quickly, about a year after. You can also do, instead of being so aggressive, you can take out one of the big branches and then let that resprout. Do that each year. For the younger trees, after they produce fruit, what you're looking for is you want lateral growth, and you want to take out any strong, vigorous shoots, and you want to tip. So like that, you're tipping the tree. Here's a strong, vigorous shoot. We're going to take that out. So here's a tree on the left. We're going to take out this strong, vigorous shoot like that. We're going to do some tipping. That's going to control the height, reset the tree. Here's a tree in my grove. You can't see it really well because there's a lot of vines behind it, but I'll outline the tree with the mouse. So here's the tree, goes up here, all the way out here, out to here. So that's the before. Here's the after. The tree goes here, down to here. You see that whole big middle has been cut out. So the height is cut out, but you're still keeping the width. So you got a lot of chance to get light, and that's opened up the middle as well. So light, fruit, flowers, and fruit. So here's the same tree. This cut on the left is the big cut I made to take out the main height of the tree, and then I made some smaller cuts. I made the cut on the left with a handsaw, and on the right I made some smaller cuts with a lopper, and they were also very strong, vigorous upright. So I took those out to control the height. So this on the left, you see the trunk that I took out, the bigger piece, and then on the right you see all the little ones that I took out. And that was a turpentine mango. So here's a quick video. You're going to just look at everything that I trimmed out of that tree, the turpentine. And the whole pruning process probably took 15 minutes, 10 minutes. So you could do this commercially with your younger trees. And what you're doing is shaping those younger trees. So again, here's the tree on the left, and you see everything taken out of the middle and some of these other strong uprights over here that were taken out. So here's the cac tree that I mentioned earlier on the left, where the middle was taken out. You can see there's some regrowth here on the right. So that's what we want, is we're getting the tree to regrow at a shorter height. Muriel asked, how do you trim a mulberry tree? Mulberries, you can get more aggressive, especially the ever-bearing mulberry. And it actually flowers on the new growth, so pruning is good for those. The big mulberry trees, you can prune them pretty aggressively as well, and the wood's pretty soft, so that helps out. So here's some more cuts. You see the regrowth there, regrowth here. So sometimes you don't really need to prune after you pick the fruit. So here's a Fairchild on the left, here's a Namdok Mai on the right. These were both picked of fruit, and they are in pretty good shape. If I took out this strongest upright here, I would lose a lot of the tree. So this is not going to be pruned at this point. Neither is the Namdok Mai. It's very good shape. I don't like all this wood down at the bottom, but certainly I'm not going to control that. This is about 12 feet, each of these. So they don't need to be really pruned. What I would do is take out these old panicles where the fruit were. See, I got all the lower ones, but the higher ones are a little rough to get to. Here's an Angie that doesn't need to be pruned. You see it's having all these resprouts. So that's good. It's sprouting on its own. I don't need to tip it. So here's a close-up. You see the growth. There's another. You see here's a lot of sprouts. So by seeing that, I don't need to do anything. You see there was a cut here, but that cut was actually cutting the panicle, not the tree itself. That was cutting out the old panicle that had the fruit on it. So here's another tree, a carambola that was controlled for height in the past. So you can see the old cut there that took out the middle of the tree. And now you see these three vigorous uprights that are coming through. So those three are the three that we're going to remove. So you see the tree on the left. Here's all the vigorous uprights right there. And here's the tree on the right, same tree, but without the vigorous uprights. If you look in the back to that gigantic lychee tree, that's the tree that you saw chopped down to size. There were two of them side by side and then a little one. So I hate to see me losing all that shade and beautiful trees, but the lychee Aeronos mite is no joke. And I certainly don't want it on my big trees when we're supposed to be showing what you should do. So here's what was taken out, just these three, very easy. Carambolas are very easy to prune. They really do what you want them to do. It's not that hard of wood, so it's very good. So when you're making these cuts, where do you make the cut? You want to leave the branch collar. So this picture on the right, we're taking off that wood, we're leaving this little fat collar. What we don't want to do is what's here on the left where it says wrong, where we cut straight down and make a flush cut. We don't want to do that. So we want to leave that branch collar like this. The branch collar has cells in it that will help to help the wound to recover and help the wound to get covered up. Angela asked, what happens if you see termite damage on a cut limb? You treat with insecticide and slice inch off the branch collar. I think termites for the most part are getting into dead wood. If someone can correct me on that, I don't think they really attack the living wood. So if you can just get that dead wood out of there, you're probably going to be okay. I'm not 100% sure about that though. When you do have a good amount of weight on a branch, you want to do what's called a three-step cut. So on the right, you see I left the branch collar. That's the final cut. But on the left, we have this big branch. It's got a lot of weight on it. So if we do our final cut, which is cut number 3, once we get about halfway through that cut, we're going to rip. The weight of the branch is going to rip down. So we do this little cut, undercut, about 8 inches up from your final cut. And then we do cut number 2 to get the weight off. If that does start to rip, it'll rip back to cut number 1 and won't go all the way down to where we make our final cut, where we're just cutting off this little stub. That's cut number 3. Much easier. Okay, so that's pruning. Very important to do that after you pick your fruit. Another thing you're going to want to do is check your irrigation schedules. A lot of times we recommend that while the tree has fruit on it, you irrigate to get the fruit kind of fattened up. So you want to cut that down after you pick your fruit. You're going to adjust your irrigation schedule. So take a look at that. Also, it depends on the time of year. Certainly right now, we've been getting some water. I don't think as much as usual during the rainy season, but we did just get 2.5 inches last week, and we got 2 inches before that. So certainly we won't be irrigating on weeks like that. You also want to scout for disease and insect problems. So you're looking through your trees, especially if you're going through and you're looking for broken branches and things like that. Also look for disease, insects. You're scouting for that. Angela mentioned that she saw some termite damage when she did some pruning. So you're looking for disease, you're looking for insects. This one is disease and insects. This is a mamey that has thrip damage, and also it has a fungus in the roots. So another thing that you would do after you pick your fruit is you want to fertilize your tree. You want to reset it. So you're going to fertilize the tree, but you're going to wait till you get some new growth. Once you get that new growth, you can fertilize because you want to feed the tree. This 6-3-16 would be pretty good for fruit because that last number is potassium, and that's the number that you really want to have higher when you're fertilizing fruit trees. This one not as great, 12-4-12. You see this is a landscape palm special, so I wouldn't recommend this for fruit, but you are working with 16 essential elements. These 3 are supplied by air and water. Then you have the macronutrients, micronutrients. Macronutrients, you're pretty much putting out in this form, the granular form. The three numbers are always NPK, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, and those are these three macronutrients. Sometimes you see a fourth number, which is usually magnesium. Micronutrients, boron, copper, iron, chlorine, manganese, and zinc, you're going to put these out for the most part as a foliar spray. And I'll tell you why in a second. Where do these deficiencies show up? If you're seeing the whole tree looking yellow or looking bad, that's probably macronutrients. If you're seeing just the newer leaves, like this guava, the leaves are so iron deficient, they're actually turning white. And these are on the newer leaves. The older leaves don't look so bad. So that's telling me that it's micronutrients that it needs. And specifically in this case, it's iron. And iron we're going to put out as a chelated drench. So here's macros, here's the carambola. The whole thing is kind of yellow. And minors, you see the new growth is looking like it needs some help. So this is minor elements, macro elements. So like I said before, macros you're going to put on the ground as a granular. Micros, you're going to spray it on the leaves as a foliar because our ground has a very high pH. So the macros can go through that high pH. The micros cannot. They're going to get bound up by the high pH. So you need to put them on as a foliar. The iron will also get bound up by the high pH. So you use a chelated form, you mix it with water, and you drench. So here's our down in Homestead and most of Miami, we have Oolitic Limestone, which is about 7.8 to 8.8. Some of you are looking at this or watching this webinar from other places. You have sandier soil, you have more acidic soil, but for us, we have this high pH. So what that means is if you look down here at 7.8 to 8.8 and you draw a line up, you see that these bars, iron, manganese, boron, copper, and zinc are thinner at that pH. These are the pH at the bottom. These are all the nutrients at the top. Then the ones like nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, the macros, they're fatter. So they can get through the pH while these other minors cannot. So where are you going to put your macros and your micros and your iron? The iron you're going to drench out here on the drip line. The macros you're going to throw out here on the drip line. You're going to throw it out like you would chicken feed. And the micros you're going to put on the leaves, top of the leaves and bottom of the leaves as a foliar spray. So don't do this with the granular. I always have great what not to do pictures from our landscape crew. So this is what you don't want to do, clumping like this. Here's, oh, I had another clumping picture, but I didn't put it in. So where do you put it? Here's a nice loquat, and we're going to put it out here in this, this area where just where the drip line is, where the grass starts. That's about where we're going to put the fertilizer, the granular, and the iron drench. So what type of iron do you use? You can't just go to a big box store and get chelated iron. You need one that says it's EDDHA. So look for that. There's a good document on Ask IFAS. If you put in chelated fertilizer based on soil pH or just chelated fertilizer, you'll find this one by Young-Kong Lee, Han Lan, and Dr. Liu. That will tell you why you need the EDHA. So just to wrap up, we've wrapped up pretty much everything post-production for your fruit trees, but I did want to talk real quick about aftercare for your propagation. I do a lot of talks about propagation. This is not a fruit tree, obviously. This is a croton, but it's a very easy one to do by cuttings or air layers. So when you do your air layers, when you do your cuttings, when you do your grafting and your seeds, after you do the propagation, you have to really take care of those plants. So these plants are located on the north side of this wall. So they're not getting full sunlight, they're getting indirect sunlight. And you need to water them so they're moist, but not super wet. So these are getting watered with not a high impact water. You see there's a lot of perlite, so there's a lot of drainage there. Here's a mango seedling, a lot of drainage, again, on the north side, so not getting a lot of sunlight. If I go and check this seedling and it's already wet, I'm not going to water it. So don't just have it on a schedule where you water every day. Your air layers, once you take your air layers off of the tree, and we like to do air layers with lychees, longans, and guavas. We do grafting with just about everything else. So when you take that air layer off the tree, which looks like this on the right, you want to immediately put that in a bucket of water and let it soak. And then when you put that in the container, you're going to take off some of the leaves. That's aftercare. And then once you have it, again, you need to really watch it to make sure that it doesn't totally dry out or get too wet. Remember, a lot of these things, especially cuttings, they don't have a lot of roots. So by watering like you normally would, it's usually too much. So here's some grafts that are also being protected from the sun for the most part. And also another thing you're noticing is each one of them is labeled. That's something sort of aftercare that you really want to make sure you do. Let's say you grafted, in this case, 20, 30 avocados, and there's 5 different varieties. If you don't mark those with what they are, then you don't know what they are, and now they become worthless to you. Okay, so we're just about at the end. I saw there's a question there. I planted a new grapefruit tree. It has pale leaves for the past 2 months, fertilized with 888. Also put azomite. It doesn't look much better. Then there's a question on lemon tree or lime in a container. I will tell you that lemons and limes and citrus don't really take well to pruning. You can prune them a little bit, but what you're probably seeing is possibly citrus greening. So you should go to Ask IFAS and look up citrus greening and see, because that's probably what you're seeing. And Dr. Green says chelated iron for foliar application is also very effective and required for organic farming. And then he says Albion's iron metasolate OMIR listed works very well. So that's good to know. Clarissa asks, is it possible to download the presentation? It will be on YouTube by the end of the week, so you can get it there. If you really want the actual PowerPoint, you can email me and I'll send you a Dropbox link, because it's pretty big with all the videos. So I'll put it in a Dropbox and you can get it that way if you really want it. Anna says, someone asked about sugar apple pruning. I can't believe I missed that question. So yeah, sugar apples, they're a much smaller tree. Most of the annonas are, and they're very easy to prune. When you prune them, they sprout back really well. So I like to prune them because they kind of do what you want. So they're a little easier to control. Same as guavas, I think. Guavas are very nice to prune. Something like big avocados and mangoes and jackfruit are more difficult. Okay, so thank you guys so much. And Jorge says it's great to defoliate if needed or attacked by pests for the annonas. So thank you guys very much. We're right at the end. Again, this will be on YouTube by the end of the week. So thank you guys so much for coming. I hope to see you next time, and have a great rest of your week, guys. Thanks for coming to Tropical Fruit Tuesday.